Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 13 of the Elliot Loney Podcast. Today I had the pleasure of catching up with Australia's #1 table tennis player, Mr. Hemming Hu. Now, Hemming is obviously a very educated man, an Olympic athlete as well. But in this podcast, I think it's going to be really interesting for the listeners and the viewers to hear about table tennis in a way that I don't think has been spoken about that often in the mainstream media. It's a sport that I'm fascinated by, a sport that obviously requires a lot of skill, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this one. So get stuck into it.
Mr. Hemming Hu, mate, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey everyone, how you going?
Mate, it's good to have you here, brother. As I said, I've been chasing you for a while. What have you been doing in lockdown, man? What's been happening? What have you been doing to keep busy? I see you just got that new table tennis machine. You've been smashing it with that thing.
Yeah, life's been pretty good, man. I found my way through lockdown. At the first lockdown, it was pretty tough. I was like, what the hell's going on? What's this all got? What's all happening? When's this all going to go back to normal? What's happening with competitions? What's life really? But then after it started to sink in, it started to become, pretty good for me. And I don't have any real issues ever since. I'm pretty adapted to the lifestyle now, but I am waiting for this to get back to normal as soon as possible.
Yeah, it must be difficult. So you're actually not allowed to train with anyone. So that's why you've been training with a robot, right? You've just been slapping big forehands like Rafa. I've seen you on there. You were just unbelievable, hitting a forehand, slapping a forehand. I saw you, man, in this video you posted on your Instagram story yesterday. It was elite ball striking.
That's it, man. I'm getting ready to play you and Mark Polman's. I'm going to get a big forehand ready, you know? Now the video,
Mark and I are very, very excited, mate. So I'm really interested to hear about your life because obviously table tennis, for a lot of people, is such an unorthodox sport to get into, but it's something that I'm super interested in because I obviously love the game, being a tennis enthusiast myself, spent a lot of time playing table tennis, obviously nowhere near the level that you're at. So tell us about your upbringing. How old were you when you first started, playing table tennis, and how did it come into your life? Tell us a little bit about that.
I started table tennis when I can't remember exactly now, but I think it was around the age of 6, maximum 7. I started in the garage with I've got an older brother as well. And my parents were trying to find him a sport to keep him out of trouble, really. Keep him out of trouble, out of school hours. And then I was just, like a younger brother following whatever he did. Sort of like what Tanasi did, Kix does. I'm not sure if Kix's brother plays tennis, but I was following him around. I was trying soccer, I tried tennis actually. But back then I had no love or passion for tennis. I just had no idea. Playing table tennis in the garage. My parents wanted me to play because they loved table tennis back in China. Mm-hmm. But I just didn't seem to like it because my brother was trying to coach me, and we're really close. Especially nowadays, we're very, very close. But we just didn't have that sort of coach-player relationship. So it got too frustrating for the both of us. But then I got my parents were like, stuff it, let's take him to the local club, see what a coach can do for him. Me not knowing what's going on at like 9 or 10 years old, that coach made me love the game. That coach was more or less the most influential coach in that way. Without him, I don't know if I'd be where I am today.
So you came here, you started playing table tennis at the age of 6. When was the moment when you realised, okay, I'm actually pretty good. My level's there. Like I can compete with the best.
So it was about 10 years old where I fell in love with the game. Just playing, just having that mentality like a video game. I want to get to the next level. I want to beat this guy at the next tournament. And then I'll be a happy man forever. I'll die a happy man. But then when I got to that level, got to a few levels higher. I'm like, all right, I want to beat the next guy. And it kept happening in that sort of progressive progress, which is more or less how progress and improvement happens. Not knowing at the time, I was sort of doing it, and then it got to about 12, where I've been playing tournaments for 3 years or so, and then I'm like, hold on a second, I could be pretty good at this sport. I could make the national team. Who knows what? I'd love to play the Olympics one day, Commonwealth Games as well for sure. But at the time, I believed I could do it, but I wasn't sure that it was going to happen. Yeah, I mean, you're never sure, but I wasn't sure it was going to happen. But I thought it was very possible.
Absolutely. And what's the allure from like a junior perspective? So obviously someone coming through the ranks and stuff like that as well, because is there a lot of money in the sport? Because the thing that I'm fascinated about with table tennis is I see all these videos pop up on Instagram and Facebook, and they're mesmerizing. Like the level that you guys play at when you watch you guys play, the rallies you have, you're standing like 9 meters behind the table, smashing forehands, ripping backies, 20, 30 shot rallies, amazing. And it's like, these clips have like 400,000 likes. They've been seen by like 50 million people. And you're like, this sport's unbelievable, but like it doesn't seem to get the international acclaim as, something like tennis. Which I think is fascinating because, you're just as skilled as some of the top level tennis players, yet it doesn't seem, from my perspective, that there's the same amount of sponsorship and endorsements. Is that fair to say, or am I wrong in assuming that?
No, you hit the nail here. So first I'm going to say that our rallies are definitely not as intense as you and Pullman's. Who else? You and all your mates when you're the tour manager when you're playing it.
Jake.
You guys are the real OG.
Yeah.
No, but it's a very, very valid point. I mean, firstly, people think that tennis and table tennis have similarities. I think it's way less. I think the similarities are way less than people think. So the first time I played tennis, every ball was going into the, out of the fence. Took me a few years to be able to not hit the ball out of the fence because we're playing with rubbers and you guys are playing with strings. And this is me coming from a table tennis perspective. So there's definitely no way near as much money. I'll say it's fair. I'll say on an international scene it's fair because in table tennis, let's say the top 30 in the world, they're guns. You guys know how hard it is to be in the top 100 in the sport, to be in the top 500. I mean, it's probably harder in tennis because there's way more players. But those top 30 guys are making a solid living through table tennis. If you're top 100, you're really living life on the edge. And I think if you're tennis, I don't know all about it, but I feel like if you're top 100, you're making a living.
Yeah.
Say if you're 80, you're making a living. At the same time, to be 90 in the world in tennis, I reckon would be harder than being 90 in table tennis because there's more players. And in another sense as well, I will say that Australian table tennis players they don't play professionally, really, because they're not getting paid by the country or by sponsors and stuff to play. Because on an international level, we don't have top 50 players, top 30 players. We don't have guys that are as good as Kyrgios and stuff like that. We don't have the backing, the sponsors. And at the same time, it's also, as a general, there's way less money because it's just not as entertaining. Someone like yourself gets it a bit and you see the spins and you're fascinated. But I think most of the general population are going to watch tennis and be like, whoa, did you see that ace by Federer? Did you see that wicked forehand by Rafa? I mean, Elliot, but but I think in table tennis, the spin's too strong. So the spin's too strong and you really got to fully understand what's going on to be able to fully appreciate it. And most people are going to watch table tennis and not know what the hell's going on. So in that sense, they're going to watch tennis and be automatically attracted to it. But to table tennis, it's just sort of, they haven't cracked, they don't understand it enough to enjoy it.
The similarities seem to be the fine motor skills involved. Like obviously there's a lot of fine motor skills in the table tennis, like for serving, for rallying, same could be said for tennis. So how many hours would you spend traditionally training, practicing, getting ready, preparing? Because, tennis players maybe 3-4 hours a day when they're professional. That's how much time they'll be spending on court. How many hours would you be spending on the table grinding to stay where you are? Because you're currently Australia's #1 player. So you've got some chops.
Yeah. Everyone's different again. I think it's very individual, but definitely when you're younger. As a table tennis player, if you're a Chinese national team player, your career is probably going to, burn out at the 30 to 33 mark, 35 if you're lucky. And they're the unique ones. But tennis, I feel tennis being more physical, more longer, not as intense in my opinion, not as quick because you get way more time. It's more muscular, it's more big, but it's not as quick. You don't have to be moving as agile in a shorter time. So in a way, it's less impactful, but it's very short and explosive. So it's still, most people will do, when you're younger, most professionals will play 4 to 5 hours. In Australia, it's a bit different. We're more juggling it with work. So I'm also working as a sub school teacher to help pay the bills and stuff. And then I'm probably doing around anywhere between 1 hour to 3 hours a day.
What are you
Maximum
teaching?
3.
What are you teaching as a substitute teacher?
I'm teaching. I can actually teach a wide range. I can teach PE. I can teach maths, psychology, and I can teach pretty much anything up to year 10. But year 12 and year 11, VC is basically the maths and psychology. That's my two majors.
That's incredible. I had no idea about this because, I mean, I did have a look at Wikipedia before we sat down, and I did notice that you went to Monash as well. So you've obviously kept education a priority throughout your table tennis exploits. So how pivotal and important has that been for balancing the two? I mean, I'd imagine it would be difficult to balance a professional sporting career, and obviously a high-level education.
For Asian parents, more so, man. Asian parents, education is a must. No, my parents have been pretty supportive. So in table tennis, you do get a bit more Asian cultured players, even in Australia, USA, and these sort of Western countries. And their parents are more along the mentality, especially their parents being traditional and being from the 1960s and 70s and stuff. They'll generally get their kids to stop at year 11 and 12. Less these days because it's more, times are changing. But my parents were always, you can mix both of them together. And they even let me go to Germany, go to Sweden, go to Europe, and play professionally full time for a couple of years. And in that sense, they've always been like, okay, try your best, and study when you're not playing table tennis, and we'll support you. So I've always been very lucky that way.
It's good to hear that you've had that support, but you did mention just now that you got to travel a lot and play, in these amazing places. And I think I'd like to bring up some of the statistics and some of the things you've done in your career, because you've got quite a rap sheet. I mean, like I wrote this earlier, you're currently Australia's #1 player. You've represented Australia at the 2014 and 2018 Commonwealth Games. That's 2 more than I have. You're the current 2018-2019 Oceania Cup champion and qualified to represent Australia at the 2018-2019 Men's World Cups, as well as competing in the 2016 Olympics in Rio. So, and this is just to name a few. There's probably some stuff that I've missed there. So what's your favourite moment from your career so far?
Oh, man, you really did your research, huh?
Yeah, man, of course.
I didn't even know all that stuff.
Surely you don't forget the Olympics, right? Unless you got mugged,
It's
because
funny.
Of course it was quite shady over there in Rio at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, with all the favelas and stuff. It's a good question, because when I've been asked that, people have been thinking, okay, the simple answer must be the Olympics. But I've sort of, in different ways, I would say the Olympics in some ways, where I was literally around guys that I idolized growing up. I was in front of the TV at 8 years old, 7 years old, watching, like Rafa Nadal, not idolizing Djokovic, but really, respect for his game. Not my favorite player, but respect.
Of course,
and,
respect.
And Usain Bolt and all these guys that I am idolizing, and then seeing them in the village and stuff. Michael Phelps as well, but he had about 50 security guards in front of him, stopping off and getting a photo. But that was the special part of it for me. So in the Olympic Games, Australia are not medal contenders in table tennis. We're not. We don't have any outstanding. We don't have a Nick Kyrgios or someone who is capable of winning a bronze medal or more. I don't know.
Aside from you.
I'm a pretty positive and optimistic guy, but in the Olympics, where we are up against the Chinese, and they're importing their teams to Hong Kong and Taipei and stuff, and it's their B teams, C teams, and you're always, no matter who you play from Australia, you've got that continental card. So I don't know if this works in tennis, but in table tennis, being from Oceania, we're stronger than New Zealand and all these other countries in Oceania. So we get a lot of privileges. Like, I get to play the World Cup, the Men's World Cup. I get to play the Olympic Games, because we always get a spot from the continent. So, we've used that. We've always had Olympic teams, and, going to the Olympics is itself. That's our gold medal. seeing all the stars is just a dream come true. That whole village vibe.
Well, you're lucky I wasn't in the village, mate.
So
I was going to say, you're lucky I wasn't in the village, mate, because I would have holocosted you for a photo. I would have been like, is that Hemming who? Bloody hell, mate. I would have come over there like Rafa and be like, hello, Hemming. Wonder if I can get a photo with you. One photo opportunity for you. I want to get a photo with you, Hemming. Fantastic.
I got a photo with Novak and Rafa that time.
No way.
Rafa was so one of my teammates was a bit shy, and he knocked me he was nudging me on the shoulder. And Raf, the man himself, was having breakfast, and he was huge at the time because he was just coming off from injury.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I was starstruck. First time I've ever seen. I'd never been to the tennis before in Australian Open, and I was just like, oh, far out, man! I've got to get a photo with this guy. I have to fucking get a photo with this guy. And then I tapped him on the shoulder nervously, And I'm very outgoing. I approached you and your missus at the Aussie Open.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's it. I'm pretty outgoing with that stuff. But, the first time I met Rafa, I was nervous. I was just like, holy shit, this is the guy that I've been idolizing since I was 7, who inspires me to work harder all the time and give it 100% all the time, even when I don't feel like it. And then I saw him and I'm like, all right, sorry to interrupt your breakfast, Rafa, but I really need to have a photo with you. I love you so much. Yeah. And he's like, and he's like, what spot do you play? He was so nice. And I'm like, table tennis, me being nervous. And I'm like, I hope you win, Rafa. I hope you win that gold medal. I think you got them.
You too. I love that. Well, did he smile in your photo?
Sorry?
Did he smile in your photo?
He gave me a half smile. So
I couldn't get him to smile either.
You couldn't get him to smile?
I couldn't get him to smile. I got a photo with him and he I think he was frowning the whole time. He was just straight up. Yeah. I think he's sick of me taking the piss out of him, to be fair.
It's funny, I don't blame Novak for that. Table tennis players not being as famous as tennis players. I understand that they're getting approached every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So that was something. Federer was injured, but at the time, but I can understand their frustration when they're thinking it's a bit too much. So Rafa was walking around the village, like taking photos with everyone. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. Joker on the other side was in the gym. I get it because he was working out. He was doing a workout, and all these more Serbians than anyone else were like, oh, nole. And I'm like, all right, I got to get a photo with this guy as well. He knows how to play tennis.
Absolutely.
And, the feeling I got after it was, all right, you've taken your photo, now piss off.
Yeah. Well, I tried to get a photo with Novak back in 2013 or 14 at the Oz Open Players Party, and Boris Becker stood in front of me and told me to shoo. He was just like, no, shoo, like that. Yeah, it was pretty hilarious. I was just like, gee, there you go. But that's it, mate. That was my shot at the title, and I missed. So anyway, COVID-19 aside, what's a typical day look like for you? Because you've got your substitute teaching. Sometimes you're playing a lot more table tennis. You're on tour. So typical day, in a nutshell, what's it look like?
So I'm doing casual at the moment with the teaching. So I'm a sub teacher. So everyone's had a sub teacher, and they're like, oh yes, our teacher's away. We get a free class. So I'm that guy. But a little bit cooler,
Yeah, of course.
And so I do that a couple of times a week. So it's a casual basis, probably 2 to 4 times a week. And apart from that, I am, we're all at home at the moment, so I'm practicing with a robot. Stage 4 is a bit tough for me. Stage 4 is tough because...
Sorry to cut you off, but it's funny how casually you said that. I'm just at home practicing with the robot. It's just hilarious. Sorry to cut you off, but continue.
No, that's cool. So I think COVID's just mentally screwed us all. We've just all accepted it.
Yeah.
But a normal day would be twice a day table tennis now, if I can. Sometimes once a day if I'm not doing that the day of teaching. I've got my gym set now. My gym equipment's just come, so that was really tough trying to get an adequate set of gym equipment.
I saw you doing sit-ups the other day on your Instagram story on a pool table or something. You had like a You had like a
Bench press.
weight. Yeah, it was. What were you doing? You were doing sit-ups on like a table or something. I was like, this guy's just taking ghetto fitness to the whole new level. Like you were doing all sorts of stuff with what you had.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the bench press, the bench, squat rack, and the barbell. So I just have to grab a couple of weights and lift it as I go. But it is what it is for now. So that, gym itself, table tennis, and family time, books, computer games now, which I've never ever done before. To be honest, when I look at Kiggs and Cock, I actually tell myself it's okay to play a few computer games. I'm pretty against computer games, but these days I'm like, all right, stuff it. Let's just do it.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, these days, I mean, people are monetizing it. So,
For sure.
yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting because I think as a kid, I played a little bit and I remember my parents not being big on it. But I think the fact of the matter is that now that there's money in esports and playing games, and even I've been able to monetize it a couple of times, not make a great deal of money, but it's been an opportunity. So I think, in that sense, you could probably see an opportunity because there would be people out there who would love to see you play esports. Like imagine if you played table tennis, a table tennis game against another table tennis, that'd be box office stuff.
I'm more of when I play games, I'm more of a gun guy. So I'll have to give Kiggs a run in 2K and Cock a run in what is it? What does he play? I don't know what he plays. CS.
He plays 2K as well. Cock's a gun.
COD.
Yeah. Kiggs plays COD and Cocky plays 2K. I think Kiggs plays COD, 2K a little bit too, but Kiggs is unbelievable at COD. I mean, I've played with him a couple of times. He carries me.
But with my days about tennis is I was going to say tennis is the tough part for me now. Now we're not allowed to play tennis.
Yeah, well, I was going to say.
Normally I am.
Sorry, continue.
No, normally I'm playing at local Dandenong Tennis Club. So I've got a coach there who was an old high school mate, and he's a left-hander. He plays exactly like Rafa. So
Really?
I fully get into it. I'm so competitive as well, and it's my twice a week. Sometimes it gets out of hand, and I start playing tennis every day. When you get a bit of sun and stuff, I start just going crazy with it.
That was a question I was really keen to ask you because I know that you are an avid tennis player and you're a big tennis fan as well. And I would have thought that, like, in a lot of ways, tennis and table tennis are similar, but so different as well. So, like, do you find that when you spend a lot of time on the tennis court hitting the ball with, big strokes, different strings, and then you get on the table tennis court, is it different? Like, does it stuff your game up at all, or does it enhance your game? What happens?
See, that's the thing. People think that table tennis is going to stuff you up if you're a tennis player, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's exactly like that, like how Nick sees basketball. I feel like it's exactly the same. So
yeah,
I get slammed for it, and I don't really care about people slamming me for it, but it helps me play better in table tennis. So every best performance I've had is when I've been playing tennis right before the tournament.
Wow.
When I've played a couple of days before, and as long as I'm not playing tennis every day, because then I start hitting my forehand around like that instead of table tennis finishing like that.
Yeah, saluting.
But I really think table tennis, the serve being a slice under, and tennis being overhead, and you got a bigger racket, bigger ball, bigger court. I think it's still so different that it just doesn't affect each other, because it's just, even though it's a racket sport, it's too different.
When you're playing for the Olympics, how different is it, like walking out representing your country as opposed to playing a calendar year tournament? Like what kind of feeling do you get when you're walking out onto the arena in front of all those people?
See, that's the thing I wanted to mention. It's like the Olympics itself, I was nervous before the match. I didn't qualify for the singles last time. So it's funny because Australia takes 3 guys and three girls. But in the singles, in the men's and women's singles, you're only allowed to have 2 players now, because China kept winning all 3 medals. So the Table Tennis International Federation was like, all right, we need to let some other country be able to win the bronze. And I didn't qualify for the singles, but I played the teams, and we played against Hong Kong, which is pretty much like a China C team. It just felt like any other match. If I was nervous, it was because I was telling myself, oh my God, it's the Olympics. But the Olympics itself, what I said before, that was the good part, where I'm around all these celebrities. The table tennis itself, it's by far not my favorite tournament. My favorite table tennis tournament in the calendar year has to be So Olympics is the biggest one for table tennis. Our number one Grand Slam. World Championships is the number two. So every 2 years you got the world singles, mixed doubles and doubles, like individual championships. And the second year is the teams. So the teams is obviously, for an Australian player, it's boring. It's just 120 teams, and you're putting all 120 countries of players into one center, and it sucks. No one likes it. It's really crap for the players. And even the singles world championships is the same. But then you're going to get a world champion. So someone's going to win a Grand Slam. It's the second biggest Grand Slam. And it's a chance for guys like me to jump my ranking points, make the main draw and stuff like that. The third Grand Slam, we only have 3 Grand Slams. But the third Grand Slam is the Men's and Women's World Cup. So that for me is by a million miles the best tournament of table tennis. Because you've got 20 players, 20 guys, and 20 girls in the Women's World Cup. Oceania gets 1 spot. So in the last 2 years, it's been me, luckily. And I've earned that as well. So luckily and also earned. And then it's helped me to get into a tournament, a hall with 19 other guys who are all top 20 players. Guys that have idolized since a young age. Germans, Chinese, top ones, just that I've been, that really got me into the sport when I was 10, 11. And then, next moment I'm playing against them and practicing with them, and and we don't have big prize money. So, just for showing up and not winning the matches, I'm getting paid this big paycheck. And that's something that every year I look forward to. It's something that definitely motivates me a lot in the sport. So that by far is by anything the best tournaments. A lot of the other tournaments for me personally suck.
Well, I'm interested in asking you this because you're obviously very qualified to answer this because you're Australia's number 1 player. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that it's Germany and China that traditionally have the most top players, right? They over the last few years, they've had a lot of great players come through. So what do you think Australia needs to do with their developmental, grassroots table tennis regime to start competing with the top tier guys from China, Germany, you know what I mean, that seem to dominate the sport?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's hard for Australian guys because we live so far from the rest of the world. Obviously, Europe, you got countries like France, even England now, because the English players, they're sort of England. They're living in sort of similar conditions to us. They're trying to train with each other. They're scrapping for training, and that's the lifestyle. But they're able to. England's a perfect example because they're able to, for €10, travel to Germany, travel to France. And then you've got Asia, which is itself, Korea, Japan, Taipei, India now as well. India's good because India's in the center. They can travel to Asia, travel to Europe, China, obviously. Those sort of countries are where the action is. And for Australian guys, we've had one guy do it. He lived in Sweden when he was a kid. He did his schooling there, and then he moved to Germany, and he probably played 12 years in Europe. That's the key to becoming. You just got to be there with them. That's how you become, top 50, top 100, that sort of level. In Australia, you just can't do it because you don't have the same quality competition, the same quality training partners. You don't have the same quality coaches, and more than most people are just not willing to sacrifice their life in Australia, and that's understandable.
Yeah, so it's a geographical thing in your mind mostly. And is there any match that you've played throughout your career when the chips were down, where you just thought, I'm going to lose this, and then you just unleashed your inner rapper, played off your nut, and just won it? Like, are there any matches that come to mind where you were just play it out of your skin and beat someone that you thought, wow, I can't believe I pulled that off?
Yeah, so as of recent, there's two matches. One of them was a guy that in about 2017, I came back from Europe and I started to become a clear Australian number 2. The guy who was number 1, and these days is still arguably better than me or as good as me. He was 3-love, so he was 2 match points up, 3-0. We played a best of 7, and he was 3-0, 10-8 up, and it was just there's times where he's really killed other players because he's really good. He's a imported Chinese player now living and residing in Australia. He's got his passport. So he had me 3-love, 10-8, and I won a few points. He started to maybe be arrogant on one, and that cost him the match. We started, we got into the final set. It was like 15 all, and in the end, won 17-15. So that sort of, I'd given up. I thought I'd just been killed. And for that tournament, I achieved what I wanted to. I got into the qualifying for the World Cup that year. And, winning that was a huge bonus and a huge reward for the tough times that I went through overseas in Germany, where I really felt like quitting and stuff. The second best one is the Nationals last year, where I'd beaten the guy like more than 10 times in a row. And then I played him in the semi-final, and I'd never won a Nationals before last year. And then, it was just playing the match of his life. I'm like, how is he doing all this? And he's winning the crucial points, getting some luck on his side as well. And then I'm 2-love down, and, I'm ready to break something really, but I'm not showing it. And I get a few lucky points. I got a few nets and edges back, and then the match just turns like that. And then, in the end, I won very close again. But that was the semi that I won. It was sort of like Rafa beating Verdasco, 2009. And as soon as he got to play Roger in the final, he was like, okay, I'm tired, but fatigue's more of a thing in tennis. But he was like, I think I'm going to win this. I'm playing Roger. I'm pretty confident against him at the time. And, that was my first national title. So I'll never forget that.
I love that. And I love asking players in table tennis, those individual gladiatorial sports, what their most memorable wins are and who they like to play against. Because it's great hearing you talk about it, because you're so passionate about it, and listening to you talk about it, you're there. You know what I mean? You're there. I feel like I'm outside. So that's kind of cool. One thing I wanted to ask, and I want to circle back a little bit, being a substitute teacher and then being an Olympic athlete is a really interesting thing. So when your students find out about your Olympic history and the fact that you're Australia's #1 table tennis player, what do they say? What do they do? They must be like rattled. Maybe they don't believe you.
It's funny because I try not to get it in the class, because it's happened when I was at uni and I was doing my placement rounds, and whenever they found out, let's say the school had a table tennis day, and they're like, huh? How's our teacher killing everyone? And then they find out. And then whenever I do have a class, sorry?
You wouldn't tell them. They'd have a table tennis day and you just go out there and just chop everyone.
A few times I played left-handed, and my left hand's really bad. So I'll just be like, all right, I'm not that good, so how about we put a bit of money on it? Yeah. And then I change to the right hand. But no, in class, if they find out, it's they're sort of starstruck. They're like, oh, why are you teaching at a school? Aren't you making millions? Because their idea, they're young. Their idea is that I'm like Federer, Nadal, big bucks, and I'm just like, all right, table tennis players, we have to. I even said it once. We have to work because we don't make money from the sport, and in the classes, I'm always given a sheet as a substitute teacher. You want to get this done. And it's sort of, as an athlete, I've always got that mindset. No matter what I do, I'm going to be very competitive and very try my best. And I just can't switch that part off. It's sort of like, I remember Demon was saying that Hewitt was competitive in anything, even if you just go on to, grab a fork in the kitchen. He'll probably try and race you there.
Yeah.
But I'm probably not at that point, but I try my best to do a good job. So it's just a habit. And in that class, when they find out, when they inevitably Google me, now students got laptops, they never get any work done. So that's what happens to the class.
So you just keep it on the down low.
Sorry?
You got to keep it on the down low.
That's it.
That's phenomenal stuff, mate. I've got a few little quick fire questions here. So what's the first one is probably a difficult one, but I want to get this out of the way first. What is the best advice you've ever received? It's a difficult question to answer. If it's not the best advice, at least something that resonated with you that comes to mind.
It's probably a lot of the stuff that I get is from tennis. So it's pretty close tie between Varinka saying fail better, fail again, and Rafa saying the losses make winning special. And I've listened to some smart people like John DiMartini and these philosophers, and they're saying things you see as negative experiences will always lead down to growth. And I'm very big on growth. At the same time, I used to be someone that takes things quite personal. I'm quite emotional. So, I remember Kiggs once saying, he hasn't been someone I've always looked up to, but I've always found him very funny and found him pretty cool, to be honest. And he said, it's never as bad as it seems and it's never as good as it seems. That's something that's really stuck with me for a long time, because you can get really emotional about things and you can wreck relationships, but when you cool off from it and you're like, okay, nothing's that much of a big deal in life. So that one really probably hits me more than anything.
No, that's powerful advice, mate. I really appreciate you sharing that here on the podcast, because, I think a lot of people, they do tend to get, tied up in the little things, and something that seems really big in an individual's life may actually end up being incredibly minuscule. If you just cool off for 24 hours, people tend to move on pretty quick. It's a big world out there. There's a lot happening. And the best city you've ever visited?
Oof. I want to say Melbourne, but Melbourne's not a visiting city for me.
Yeah.
Out of all it's been pretty cool. It's been pretty cool to be able to travel the whole world. Madrid was probably, for me personally, one of the best cities. So it's hard to say the best city, because it's all about what each individual person finds as, where they had their best experiences. So probably Madrid. I love the food there. I'm big on food. Just Sweden in general. Sweden in general was quite cool. I want to go to Canada one day.
Yeah. Canada. Montreal's an amazing place. I highly recommend going to Montreal.
You've been there, huh?
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And unbelievable. And I don't know, what's your marital status at the moment? Relationship status? Are you a single man?
Sorry, ladies, I'm taken. Not married.
Taken?
Don't know if I ever do want to get married, but that's another thing I do. Fortunately, I can do that these days. Spend time with the missus and get that balance. I'm big on balance, so I love that. Love that balance.
Okay, well, in that case, don't go to Montreal. If you're happy and you've got a loving girlfriend, please stay here. Don't go to Montreal. Now, who's the toughest opponent you've ever faced in your career?
Oof. It's a Belarusian legend. It's called Vladimir Samsonov. So he's on the downfall of his career now. He's still 45 and he's still playing. So mad respect.
Wow.
He's sort of, he's won a few Grand Slams. He's won the Men's World Cup, the one I was talking about. That's like, I don't know, what would you classify as the Grand Slams as? So Wimbledon being the biggest. I love Rafa, but sorry, Roland Garros is the fourth one. What would you put as two? US Open or Aussie Open? What are you going?
I'd probably say US, purely because of the amount of media buzz and sponsorship opportunities that come as a result of winning the US Open. You know what I mean? Like Australian Open's obviously a huge prize, but then, the sponsorship opportunities from winning US, you become a superstar overnight. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I would say US.
Oh, I feel like the argument for that is Australian Open being the first one of the year. Everyone's buzzing, everyone's out of the off season. But yeah, our Men's World Cup is like that. He's like the Aussie Open. And this guy's won a few Men's World Cups. He hasn't won the other two slams, but he's seen as the Roger Federer of table tennis. He's such a gentleman. He's so humble. A few practice sessions that I've had with him, I'm like, okay, I'm starstruck. I'm like, all right, I'm hitting with a guy that I've idolized.
Yeah.
And he's making mistakes and saying sorry after the shots that he missed and stuff. And I'd say sorry. He'd be like, oh, no problem. And for me personally, he was very much like how Curiosity's Andy. He's just, for me, very disgusting to play against. Very, very awkward, not comfortable. I could play better players, and I'd feel more comfortable. I wouldn't get smashed as much.
If there's one thing that you could change from your career, a match that you could replay, anything that you could just rewind, start again, is there anything that comes to mind, or would you not change a thing?
I wouldn't. So this year at the Olympic trials is, in my mind, a very, very bad performance. I came fourth. So that means that if COVID didn't happen, even though COVID's happened, assuming the Olympics go on, I still have two more chances to qualify for the games, but I haven't directly qualified. And I expected myself to be number one, number two. And I didn't play good enough on those days. I the crucial points I didn't play good, I normally do play them very good, and I always get on top through experience. I would change a lot of my approaches to life, to my outside life before that, which influenced me in playing a bad 3 days in that qualifying. At the same time, I've done a lot of growth and learning from that. So I wouldn't change it, because all those negative experiences have made me a much better person and a much better player. So I wouldn't change anything. I think everything that's happened is for a reason.
Mate, you're a mature man. That's that philosopher stuff coming through, isn't it? That's that hardcore uni degree kind of stuff, isn't it? That's what Monash University, the years at Monash, mate, with the strict Chinese parents have a huge cranium. Now, moving on, I just want to know, Hemming, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time, 20 years' time? What's next for Hemming? Because, mate, you've got the world at your feet. You know, you're a qualified man, you're an educated man, you're an Olympic athlete. What would you ideally want to do in a perfect world?
So, currently I'm doing the school teaching to support my life, make the money, and I enjoy that as well. But more so, I enjoy just filling out the rest of my table tennis career. I realize that life is not forever, and at the moment, I love playing table tennis. So that's more or less like, it's my goals to repeat my success, make another Olympics, win another national championship, get as good as I can on the world scene, things like that, and mostly enjoy myself doing so. So I don't know how long I can last or how long I'll keep enjoying it. So, when I feel like this is not for me anymore, that's when I feel like I'll be on the hunt for something new. And highly likely, I think I'm going to become a coach, coaching other players and sort of building my own business or industry in this area, in table tennis. Because I feel like, since I was born, my life's been about table tennis, and I want to be involved in table tennis for the rest of my life. I can see myself doing something in that.
Oh, man, you're a great dude, Hemming, and I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast. Hopefully I haven't hassled you too much. But mate, you're a champion. I'm wishing you all the best moving forward. I hope you crack that top 50 and beyond. I'd love to see you get an Olympic medal, mate. I think you've got it in you. And, mate, all the best with everything, in all the endeavours in your life moving forward, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for watching and or listening, guys. If you head over to the description in the YouTube, you'll be able to follow Mr. Hemming Who on Facebook or Instagram and stay up to date with everything that he's doing on the table and off the table. And of course, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to stay up to date with the podcasts and more gags that will be on the way. So thanks for your support. I'll see you soon.